Okay, so this morning I'm decided I'm going to do something about my grips. I've actually found that with the grips on my bike, I've got quite big hands, and I sometimes feel like I'm gripping a couple of cocktail sticks with these grips, and it's I don't know whether I'm getting the best level of control. So I'm going to experiment with these Grip Puppies and see how I get on with them, and just see what difference that makes. As I say, these grips on the RT do feel actually quite small in my hand actually, so I've really got to sort of make a real effort to actually grasp them, and I don't feel particularly relaxed. And from what I understand it, you know, you're supposed to have a very light touch on the handlebars of a bike, you know, very neutral. So and at the moment I feel as though, because I'm gripping on too tight, it's causing me some issues, I think, with holding a line at speed, but also some of the slower speed stuff as well. So vibration's not particularly an issue, so it's something I do actually want to experiment with. So that's today's challenge. But before we do anything at all, we've got to basically get the bike locks off. There we are. As usual, I've got the wrong one. This is the problem with having two bike locks, same manufacturer. There we are. Okay, so put it again. Number one off, and let's take number two off now. Hopefully. There we go. Successfully completed. So on the BM, obviously on the later models, mine is the keyless ignition, but of course you get a key so that you can release the seat. Try and do that one-handed. There we are, because I'm holding the camera. Now then, the big question is, where's the toolkit? I've no idea. Aha! There we are. This looks interesting. So what does BMW give us? My toolkit, and I'm starting to get the idea these BMW engineers really know what they're doing, because I was just looking at that just for a minute or so, just trying to work out how to get everything out, and very simply, there we go. And I'm assuming that is going to fit into my into the end of my grip. So let's bring it round, shall we, and have a see. Nope, too small. Unless I'm missing something, that the actual BMW supplied, I suppose you call it like a star screwdriver, doesn't actually fit in there. It's too small. I'm looking under the seat. The toolkit does look rather basic for a bike which is going to cost you £15,000-20,000. So anyway, as I'm fortunate that I've managed to find in my old toolkit a star connector that's actually going to fit that. So there we are. So I've loosened that off. I don't even know actually probably whether I need to take these off at all on this bike. In fact, I think I'm going to leave them on actually. I've changed my mind. So here are the Grip Puppies. Cost me £11, so nothing really, is it, for something like this? And I got the ones that are specially for the BMW, I think. So ordered those off eBay. They arrived after a couple of days. So let's open the packet and see how we get on, shall we? So here we are. They appear to be made out of the same stuff as my wetsuit's made out of actually, although I did a bit of research and it does seem that they aren't actually porous in the sense that water isn't going to travel through them. So whilst rain and so forth is going to sit on the surface, it's actually not going to be absorbed into it. And of course on the RT as well, with the heated grips, I would imagine they'd dry out very quickly. So let's just have a quick look, just sort of size wise, shall we, and just understand. So it looks like we've got to trim a little bit off the edge of there, so a little bit of careful measuring ahead. So let's just measure them up, shall we? Okay, so I've just used a little bit of masking tape I've been decorating the kitchen over the last few months, so I've got plenty of that left, and I've just used that just to mask off the just to mark the length up. And as with always with these things, you can always trim a bit more off, but you can't stick a bit more on. So I will allow just, I think, probably an extra couple of mils on the end, just for just to give myself a little bit of wiggle room, shall we say. Okay, call this a Stanley knife. Our cousins in the US call them box cutters. Looks like a bit of a rusty blade, so let's go for a new blade, shall we? Stick a new blade on that. And just to do it without slicing your finger. The hospitals are full of people, aren't they, including myself, who've managed to slice through fingers. You look very sheepish, don't you, sitting there waiting for 4 hours in casualty while they stitch your finger back together again. So managed to survive that one. Right, so let's cut the thing to length now, shall we? There we go. As you take a bowl of soapy water, which I've got, mixed it up quite thick with some washing up liquid, a good old fairy liquid. So we'll see whether it's got yet another use, and I'll just smear a little bit of that on the inside of the on the grip, and then we'll see if we can go for it. Left hand grip done, so right hand grip done. So again, you can see there, I've just tried to allow just a little bit of overlap. As I said, you can always cut a bit more off, but you can't put a bit more on, can you? So I'm trying to do this one-handed, by the way, on my camera phone, so hopefully that's okay. So we'll cut this one to length now, and we'll stick this one. Throttle grip, just check I've got it the right way around. I actually think these weights do make it easy to fit the thing on, actually. Oh, this one's putting up a little bit more of a fight, but to be honest, nothing serious. There we go. Done. Might even have beaten my 15-second record there. So as you can see, I think fitting Grip Puppies is actually very straightforward. And I've got to say that does feel quite nice now. That feels about right for my hand. So okay, so I think the next thing then is just to dry them off, put the tools away, and take it out for a little ride and see how we get on. Well, we're out on the bike Sunday morning. Just fitted the Grip Puppies, just gave them time to dry off. Very easy, actually. I think I'm claiming a personal best in terms of fitting time of 12 seconds. If anybody can beat that, I'd like to hear from you. Very easy, actually. Just mixed up a nice sort of quite a thick solution of washing up liquid, actually. Gave it about 5 shots and not much warm water. So I started taking the bar ends off the RT, but actually discovered I didn't need to, and in a funny kind of way they actually helped fit the Grip Puppies on. So I just took probably about 15 mils off the end, I would imagine, just to make them fit. Just allowed a little bit of overlap, so they're slightly oversized, but that's what I wanted rather than having them too small. A bit like wearing a really short pair of trousers, isn't it? You wouldn't really want to be seen to be doing that. So anyway, they're on, and the initial feel is actually that you hardly know they're there, actually, so you've consciously got to think about them. But for me, I've sort of got quite long, relatively sort of thin fingers, and I was finding I wasn't getting cramp in my fingers holding onto the grips, but I was consciously having to grab hold of them, really, whereas now actually it is very comfortable. So it's more comfortable. To be honest, the vibration was never an issue, really, so that's not an issue. I think it's just the sense of the actual grip itself. So I've yet to see whether the Grip Puppies are going to help me with my gear changing, with my throttle control. I was sometimes finding that as a back to biker, you know, still having to relearn all the skills I've forgotten from 30 odd years ago, but using the throttle and trying to brake, just a little bit of it wasn't working quite as well as I wanted to. So anything that gives me just a little bit of advantage I'm happy to do, and I think for 10 or 11 pounds, which is what they cost off eBay, I think it's well worth doing. And like everybody else says when you watch these reviews, yes, you can still feel your heated grips through the Grip Puppies, so that's not an issue. So for me, I think if you've got relatively large hands, I just think it just gives you a little bit more feel, you know. It's a bit like, I mean, the Americans won't understand this, but you know, when you put extra grips on your cricket bat, you know, the handle's a little bit too thin, so many batsmen will put 2 or 3 grips on. Just gives it a bit of extra feel. And when you're out, you're out. So for me, well worth doing. Well, that's my first proper overtake at speed, and the advice is, isn't it, just take a little look behind you, just check no one's coming up behind, and when you go, and then get back in as soon as you can. So I've done it. So I think if you've followed my channel, then you'll realise that my philosophy really is just to learn in really sort of small chunks, really. So my philosophy is just going out on lots of small rides. Every ride has an objective, so the objective of this ride is just very simply to just get a few more hours under the belt, or probably another 60 minutes actually. It's not going to be a long ride, but also just to get the feel of the bike with the Grip Puppies as well. I've set my gadgetry up as well, so I've now got the SatNav talking to the Scala Rider QZ, talking to my phone, the eternal triangle of motorbike communications. So it didn't go particularly well at first, because I think I was trying to get the Scala Rider to do too much actually, because you probably know with the Scala systems you've got 2 channels, and I set channel 1 up on the phone and channel 2 up on the SatNav, and tried to get the Scala talking directly to my phone, so I could listen to music and phone calls, but it didn't work actually. So I then I tried a number of different options, completely resetting every time, scoured the internet, went on the Scala website, didn't find that much use. I contacted their customer support, took them about 5 days to get back to me, and they basically wanted me to make a transatlantic phone call from the UK to the US, presumably waiting in a queue as well, so they could talk me through the process. So I wrote back to them saying no, I wasn't going to do that. All I wanted was a simple procedure for connecting a Scala Rider to an Android phone to a BMW SatNav, and that was the last I heard of them. So they then made the mistake of sending me a feedback form for the quote help that they'd given me. So I'm a great believer in giving feedback, whether positive or negative, so I'm afraid they got some negative feedback. Now that said, since then what I've done is I've elected to just use a single channel on the Scala Rider. So very simply what I've now done is I've put all my music onto the SatNav VI in MP3 format, so I found out how to export them off iTunes, and I found that the key there was to
first of all, put your music, export your music into MP3 format, which is relatively straightforward on iTunes. Loads of advice on the internet about doing that. Now once you've done that, save those in a separate folder. You've got to buy yourself a micro SD card to go in your SatNav VI in my case for the BMW, and then literally just drag and drop the playlists over. And there's a bit of faffing around trying to get the playlist set up, but eventually I got that sorted, so I've got about 10 or 12 different playlists. So now the music just comes straight from the SatNav, and it works very simply. I've not tried making or receiving phone calls on a bike. I'm not sure whether I'll ever want to do that really, but I know the facility's there if it's absolutely necessary, but I've got enough to think about at the moment. But in terms of what the Scala Rider QZ is doing for me, I can certainly hear my my SatNav instructions in terms of route finding, and also I can hear a little bit of music, and I actually find that a little bit of classical or a little bit of opera music actually helps me to think. Just a little tip, if you've got kids at school, or if you're trying to work on anything that's left-brained, you know, the left side of your brain is the Excel spreadsheet. It's the side that deals with prose, words, verbs, numbers, analysis, and so forth. Doesn't have any imagination skills. The right side of the brain is the musical side, creative side, innovative side. So listening to a little bit of music actually, I believe, will probably enhance your riding skills, on the basis that it actually stimulates that side of the brain. The point is, it doesn't distract you, but it illuminates your brain. So for me it does help, I have to say. Now at some point I'm going to get into earplugs and start to experiment with those. To be honest, the kind of distances and durations on the bike at the moment, and I think the fact I'm sitting behind a screen and I've got a shoey helmet on, actually there isn't an awful lot of noise, and I'm a great believer in protecting my ears, but certainly when I go out on some of the longer rides, probably the other side of Christmas as we get into the spring and things start to warm up a little bit, then I shall certainly experiment with some earplugs. Whoa. I'm not sure what's going on here. Am I taking his bed for a drive, obviously? Nice conditions to ride in this morning, actually overcast, so there's none of this low winter sun that I talked about on my last video. And for a Sunday morning it's relatively quiet too. So as I say, today's just the point is just a short ride really, just a little ride out, just to get a feel for the Grip Puppies, and I'd say they're a definite plus. And if you've got big hands, it's worth doing. The SatNav as well keeps pinging in my ear, and every time it pings, it's where in the UK where presumably we've had a mobile speed camera, and recorded on the camera's database are all those points, so it just gives you a little bit of a warning. And apparently, gosh, they've got some big moles in that field, haven't they? Gotta watch out for them. Yeah, so anyway, sorry, before I got distracted, yeah, so apparently the faster you go, the earlier you actually get the warning. So again, as I mentioned in the previous video, I actually find that the technology on this bike actually makes it relatively easy to ride, I think. I mentioned, I think in the if you saw my initial series of 5 videos when I'm coming back to the bike and I'm trying to work out which one to buy, and I did find you probably know, I found the Suzuki V-Strom 650 just an absolute delight. And at some point when I'm a bit old and wobbly, then maybe that might be the bike for me, or whatever derivation exists in those days. But at the moment the RT I'm actually finding, quote, easy to ride. Now, where I find it easy is the kind of thing I'm doing at the moment. So just these nice sort of country lanes, the sort of sweeping bends, the dual carriageways. The challenge for me is anything that's below 10 miles an hour, where I start to feel the weight. So I was out on a local car park yesterday practicing the slow riding skills again. I'm just trying to work on those. So I'll keep putting just a little bit of time into those. And I'll try and get half an hour, 20 minutes every week, and eventually that should hopefully build into a subconscious skill set. But on quite a few occasions now, I found myself coming up to a junction and just getting the timing wrong between putting my feet down, pulling the front brake and letting go of the accelerator, and you can imagine the sort of consequences, so sort of stalling and slipping a little bit. Nothing dangerous, mind you, but again, it's that sense of, you know, there's over 500 pounds weight of inertia heading in a particular direction, and I think it's part of anticipation. It's just part of getting the feel, I think, of this machine. But at these sort of speeds now, you know, I'm sort of 50-ish at the moment, then you actually just don't feel it. It's just, it doesn't exist. It just feels like a nice stable platform. You could be sitting in your armchair. It's a nice little road I've discovered here. Let's go to Wolvie, shall we? This part of the country, interestingly, just a little bit of a history sort of insight for you. The place names tell you an awful lot about what happened here in the past. So Wolvie would suggest at some point there were wolves here. And again, around this part of the country, we live on what we call the Danelaw. The Danelaw was the division between Viking and Saxon England, established around about the 700s, something like that. So you had a border. Everything essentially north, east of that border was Viking. Everything southwest of it was Saxon. And any place names that end in BY, then that just tells you that was a little village. So it is a Saxon place name. Clues everywhere if you know where to look for them. I'm just really starting to discover this, really. I do like a bit of landscape archaeology, and part of the reason for getting the RT was just to get me out into the landscape, actually. A couple of very experienced looking bikers there thinking he looks a bit wobbly on that bike, and they're absolutely right. I'm still somewhere between leaning and counter steering. So again, this morning is maybe just a little opportunity to practice some of that counter steering. But I'd much rather be the tentative side of the line and the cautious side of the line than anything else. Because of course on a bike, when you're gone, you're sitting there in the hedge, it's too late, isn't it? My technique for cornering now, I've no doubt the IM will teach me something different, but at the moment I'm following the advice of Mac Ryder in Texas. Good old Texas boy there, lots of great advice. I'm sure you've seen his videos on YouTube, but slow look, press roll. I sort of turn that into the acronym of slipper, just helps me to remember it. So slow is entering the corner at such a speed that you don't need to brake. And actually you can either maintain that speed or gently accelerate from it. So look is obviously looking through the corner, not getting fixated, being aware of the vanishing point. So here I am going around a right-hander, so I'm in position 1. Press is the counter steering element, which as I've mentioned, I'm still very new to. I guess there must have been a time 30 odd years ago where I probably did it without even thinking about it. Nobody used to talk about counter steering in those days because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have YouTube, and you just learnt by talking to your mates on the street corner, or you learnt by doing lots of mistakes. And then roll then is rolling on when you come out of the corner, just generally accelerating to get the bike into balance between the front and the rear suspension. So SLPR, slipper, slow look press roll. So again, am I consciously competent? I'm not sure. I'm conscious of it, but it's something I need to practice. And for me the biggest test is the roundabout, as you might have seen back there. I would say I'm medium OCD, and what that essentially means is for me that everything has to be organised. So one little daft example is the fact that in my wallet, if I put banknotes in there, all the queen heads have to be facing up. And any system I work with on a regular basis, I can't help but have to optimise it. Look at that and think I'm being critical of them. I never am. I just look to optimise every situation. So, and being a management trainer as well, that's been a real key for me in terms of the feedback that I get, which is really trying to help people through complex processes. So if I can look at a complex situation and break it down, decompose it into a series of simple steps so that really anybody can follow it, even a 5-year-old, then I consider my job to have been done. So coming back to the bike, I'm applying that same process. Everything I'm looking at, I'm assimilating a lot of information via documentation such as the IAM logbook, the police rider's manual, YouTube, the internet, magazine articles, and I'll make no apology for turning that into my own approach. So I shall get back in time for lunch. As usual, it's bacon for me. Food of bikers. My staple diet. Yeah, another observation with the Grip Puppies is that at this stage in the ride, normally my hands would be starting to ache a little bit on the in the way that I've been sort of grabbing hold of the handlebars, the grips. And actually I'm finding that my wrist is generally now more relaxed. There's less strain in my fingers, my joints, my wrists. So yeah, I think for 10-11 quid, good investment. Oh. Are you okay? Sorry?
Drive shaft's just gone.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Have you got some help on the way?
Yeah, RAC coming up.
Oh right.
Thanks anyway.
Right, no worries.
Cheers for stopping.
I've just come back to the bike after 37 years, so I'm trying to rediscover all those skills I forgot when I had an FS1E. Did you? Yeah. I'd love to know where it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A few quid.
Yeah, I bet.
I was going to say this is a new one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's oh dear.
Yeah.
So was it just like a bang, or did you just lose power then?
No, it's got you feel a rattle on it.
Yeah.
You can see where the oil's leaked out of his shaft.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So it's not good.
You don't carry a spare in your top box, obviously. No.
Oh, it just happens.
Right.
Yeah, I wish.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's weird for me because for me getting back on after such a long time, I did a back to biking day with Honda, and I did 4 test rides in a week, and I just took it. I bought this sight unseen, took delivery of it, and then I've been going out in sort of small 1-hour blocks really with a very specific set of learning. So I've been like to the local railway car park, just practicing the slow moving stuff. Been working on
slow manoeuvring.
How is it?
Yeah, how are you doing slow? How are you doing the
Not
slow
well.
ride?
Not well. It's the weight. It's the but to be honest, I'd say
I had a trophy, the Triumph trophy.
right.
That's a lot bigger than this.
Yeah.
A lot heavier.
Yeah.
And I can actually stand still, move it, stand still, full lock.
Right.
It's all about anybody can ride fast.
Yeah.
Can you ride slow?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all about. When was your last riding? How long ago was your last ride?
What, you mean recently?
No. When did you start? When did you finish riding?
I finished riding. Well, basically, I bought here's my history. I had a Honda PC50 when I was at sixth form college, the blue flash with a wooden top box. Then it was a Suzuki GT185. Then it was a Honda 250 Dream. Then it was a Suzuki GS550. And then I was saving up for a car, so bought the FS1E, put the money in the bank, and then chugged around on that for 6 months. But it's funny. Some things come straight back, but. Yeah. Like you say, that it's the slow riding and just the weight of this, So
a lot of people are always doing this, slow riding, doing this.
It's fatal, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't do it.
Because you dip then, don't you?
Yeah,
So I've just fitted these this morning, actually.
Yeah.
I'm just doing. I've got a YouTube channel, so it's called Back to the Bike, and I make all my mistakes in public, actually. So. Yeah, well, I mean, you have to everything for me. So I went to the sports bike shop. All the gear was new because, of course, back in 1980, it was a Belstaff wax cotton jacket. Yeah. And everything leaked, didn't it? So, I mean, there was no sort of USB ports on bike or ABS or anything like that. So having to learn to understand all the systems on it, all the gadgetry, getting this talking to this, for example. I mean, the fact you can actually listen to SatNavs, and then the maintenance on them. So I mean, I've only had it 4 or 5 weeks yet, but understanding how you check the everything. Yeah. So literally everything is completely brand new. So I've joined the forum, the 1200 forum, so that's quite interesting. So just trying to pick up information from wherever I can, really. So, I'm sorry your day's been interrupted, guys. Well, I'll tell you, the Chinese. I'll leave you on this point. The Chinese use the same word for crisis as they do for opportunity. So the crisis is your bike's broken. The opportunity may be you treat yourself to something new.
Well, you've got to get yourself sorted first.
You do realise now I know that you're a Rosper Gold, I'm going to be under loads of pressure pulling away from here, don't you? So.
Yeah. It's no pressure, mate.
Easy to say.
Yeah. Take care, bro.
Yes, cheers. Yeah. No worries. Yeah. Well, that was interesting. I saw those guys in the lay-by when on the way out, actually, and I wondered what was going on. And it turns out one of them on the GS has got a broken drive shaft, would you believe? So they're waiting for the RAC to come along and sort themselves out. And the guy, they're both twins, nice guys. The guy on the right is a Rosper Gold riding instructor as well, actually. So just giving me his thoughts on Rosper versus Institute of Advanced Motorists. So at the moment I'm going to be part of the IAM. We'll give that a go, and let's get some riding skills together. Obviously I couldn't offer any technical assistance there, but maybe just a bit of moral support, and maybe the use of a phone if they needed one. My mechanical skills on motorbikes are virtually non-existent now. I remember taking apart the carburettor on my Honda PC50 on my kitchen table back in 1978, and it took me about a week to get the whole thing back together with the help of the Haynes manual, and it never rode quite the same way afterwards. So I'm not your best person really when it comes to the mechanical stuff. It's funny, isn't it? You just think you're going out for a 10-minute ride to test your new modification on your bike, in my case the Grip Puppies, and all kinds of things happen. If you looked at my history ride video when I go to Fotheringay, I didn't expect to meet Mike Lee and find out all about the bells in the Fotheringay church. This is very much what I wanted out of motorcycling, just to get out and meet people. So for me it's not just about the actual bike itself, it's about where it takes me. It's a means to an end as well as an end in itself. And I wish you the same. Safe riding to all of you. And this is Back to the Bike signing off. See you next time, and thanks for watching.